So, Julian Assange is finally free. He struck a plea deal with the United States and pled guilty to a charge of conspiring to obtain and disclose national defence information after publishing national security documents relating to the Iraq and Afghanistan wars via WikiLeaks in 2010. For that, he was sentenced to 5 years in prison and then released immediately because of time already served in the UK. Now, many see Assange as a hero of journalism and the free press. We've probably all seen the shocking video leaked to WikiLeaks by Bradley Manning, who now likes to be called Chelsea Manning. It was horrific stuff showing the battlefield killing of civilians by US forces from an Apache helicopter. 2 journalists employed by the global news agency Reuters were killed. The US military apparently mistaking their camera equipment for weapons. I'm going to show you that video now. A warning, you will see dead bodies, but the point of actual killing we've edited out of this version.
Yeah. Hotel 26, Crazy Horse 18.
We'll call free change by Charlie Mike Bravo.
They're 1 o'clock. Haven't seen anything since then.
Just I see your element. You got about 4 Humvees out along this.
You're clear. All right, firing.
Line here. When the space line
Let me know when you have it.
We'll shoot.
Light them all up.
202 traffic, 260.
Come on, fire. All I gotta do is pick up a weapon.
It's Bushmaster 7, go ahead.
Roger, we have a black SUV or a bongo truck.
Bushmaster 7, Roger. This is Bushmaster 7, Roger, engage.
1-8, engage.
Clear. Come on.
311. 20.
Magnet radio aggressive 3-4 is off zone 208 for zone 1. Call for change.
Aggressive 4-3, zone. Correction, aggressive 3-4.
Back at the 2 civilian kids to Rusty, they're going to have the IPs link up with us over here, break.
Magnet radio aggressive 3-4.
IPs will take them up to a local hospital, over.
Oh, it's their fault for bringing their kids to a battle.
That's right.
The brutal reality of war. But does the leak of that video and the leak of other documents proving the US government was lying about civilian casualty numbers in the wars, leaks that are up there with the Vietnam War Pentagon Papers in terms of necessary exposure of government wrongdoing, does that positive action by Julian Assange and WikiLeaks justify the many other leaks that Assange oversaw that were just irresponsible document dumps? The publishing of troves of sensitive intel documents that put people's lives at risk and compromised our soldiers and local intel sources in these wars. People vehemently disagree on whether he's a hero or a villain for those reasons. And the best debate of the week on this point, I think, was on the Piers Morgan Uncensored show.
Well, the two sides couldn't be clearer. There's an obvious tension between the journalistic duty to publish all truths and the responsibility of the people charged with keeping us safe, including the men and women who fight to do so. But saying the words national security doesn't give anybody, however powerful, the right to behave with impunity. There's a long tradition of holding those powerful people to account. The Pentagon Papers in the 70s exposed crimes in the Vietnam War and were feted for their impact and bravery. The sorry saga of Julian Assange may already be enough of a deterrent to prevent anyone doing it again. But is that a good thing?
Indeed, it is not. But neither is putting people's lives at risk by not doing proper journalism and checking what you're publishing before you publish it. Michael Schellenberger is an independent journalist best known for his work in exposing the Twitter files. He put the hero side of the argument.
Unfortunately, it's not a huge victory for the First Amendment. As you mentioned, in 1971, the U.S. Supreme Court made very clear that the publisher of leaked documents are protected in our First Amendment rights to publish those documents. The person that leaks them is not. Obviously, they're constrained by U.S. laws, and understandably, the person that leaked the documents to Julian Assange was prosecuted and served a sentence. But I think this is a very chilling case on the rights of journalists, and we've seen that Pentagon Papers principle be challenged, be under attack in recent years, including around the election of Joe Biden in 2020. So my concern is that this still sends a potentially chilling effect, given how severe the punishment was of Julian Assange, but obviously a really wonderful day for him and his family.
Michael Schellenberger speaking to Piers Morgan Uncensored there. Ben Ferguson is a talk show host and a podcaster with a very big following in the US. He put the villain side of the argument.
And there's a difference between the Pentagon Papers and what Assange has done. And I'll give you a perfect example of that. He knew that he was putting lives at risk when he decided to release the Afghan diary, which was those, including some even in the Taliban, that were working with the UK and the United States of America. And he knew when he put those names out there that they were going to be hunted down by the Taliban and they were going to be brutally murdered. And many of them were. Many of their families were tortured. Many of their children were tortured. Many of them were beheaded. So when you try to convince me that he is a journalist, no, he's not. He didn't act responsibly. Could you make the argument that there were some things within what he put out there on the internet that maybe could have been in the category of the Pentagon Papers? Absolutely. But when you start going out there and publishing the names of individuals and sources that are giving information about a terrorist organization to the U.S. and other countries, you cross a line there that has nothing to do with journalism. And those people, many of them were viciously murdered, including children. And so I don't feel sorry for him. I think he should still be in jail. I'm not celebrating this day. It puts national security at risk all over the world, because now the question you have to ask is, if you are an informant, if you're trying to help stop World War III, if you're know information within Al-Qaeda or ISIS-K, and you work with people around the world, are you going to be outed? And if you're outed, are they going to hunt you down, your children down, and murder them in front of you? That is what he was a part of, and you can't rewrite that aspect of history.
But Assange's lawyer and WikiLeaks said this week that nobody died as a result of the publishing of the information. And the US authorities admitted that in the negotiations and hearings this past week too, a point Michael Schellenberger was quick to bring up.
This has been repeated a few times. It is not the case that anybody has found that anybody died due to the release of Julian Assange, of the documents by Julian Assange. In fact, quite the opposite. They found that, no, in fact, they found that it had not. Even Joe Biden. Let me finish. Allow me to finish.
Okay, let Michael finish, and I'll come back to you.
Even President Biden had admitted that it had not resulted in any deaths or any sacrificing of national security. Now, on the issue of asking for documents, I think it is important for investigative journalists to know that they can't solicit information from their whistleblowers. You have to be very disciplined about this. Anybody who's a working journalist and has spoken to their lawyer about this knows they need to be careful. And we also need to be careful not to redact the information before we release it. I agree there was some carelessness there. However, the punishment was far more severe than any misdeeds here. Again, nobody was harmed. No national security was undermined by this. It is true, and it was found by repeated investigations.
I love how a moment ago everybody's like, oh, you can't trust the government, but now you're quoting the government saying no one died and no one was harmed because of this. That is total crap. I will quote now for you the Taliban spokesman. He said, we're studying the report when the report came out. He then said, after the files were released to the public in the summer of 2010, quote, we knew about the spies and we are working to find them. We will be investigating through our own secret service whether the people mentioned are spies or working with the U.S. and if they are U.S. spies, quote, then we know how to punish them. Fast forward. They then put executions online and then said that they had actually killed people on their websites, on Twitter back then before it was X, saying that they had hunted down the people working with the spies.
You're repeating Taliban propaganda. You're literally repeating Taliban propaganda at this moment. You're spreading Taliban disinformation.
Let me ask you this seriously, because I'm not dumb enough to buy what you're saying right now. Do you actually believe the Taliban wouldn't go out and kill people that were working with the United States of America? Are you that dumb as a journalist to believe the Taliban doesn't kill and behead people that betray them? Like, give me a break.
Why are you spreading Taliban misinformation? You're participating in the Taliban's propaganda information. Nothing you said proves what you claim it proves. In fact, the U.S. government has itself admitted that it did not result in the deaths of any American soldiers or undermine American national security.
Defending Assange and journalists, it's not journalistic integrity, by the way, to go out there and to put everything on the internet when someone sends it to you, which is what he did. An actual journalist who has integrity.
I agree that he should have redacted some of that information. That's a separate issue.
Out there. But you say, oh, you're a journalist, you can do no wrong.
Hang on.
I don't trust
Ben,
the Taliban, I trust Joe Biden.
Ben?
Okay, so some serious disagreement there over whether people actually did get killed by what Assange did. My position is this. Does it matter if they did or didn't? Isn't the real issue that they could have been? It disturbs me greatly that we're mixing up two different things here. The very right and good and correct work that Assange did in publishing some of the Manning material, and the very bad thing that he did in just data dumping classified intelligence. Look, I'm as suspicious as anyone of the power of intelligence agencies. I think that they are a bit out of control at the moment, and like most bureaucrats, are not being accountable to the elected officials and the people that they're supposed to serve. It might be a good thing to completely reorganise and reset organisations like the CIA, MI5 and ASIO, and the NSA and MI6 and ASIS every decade or so, because they can become powerful and dangerous laws unto themselves. But it's also true that we need intelligence organisations as part of our defence against foreign hostile actors. So while what Assange did in releasing the Manning material related to where the government had overstepped the mark and committed war crimes and underrepresented civilian casualties in a war is good, it's bad to just dump documents out there without checking them first. That's not journalism, and it doesn't deserve the protection of the US First Amendment. In fact, it puts the First Amendment at risk from those who would attack it by giving them some ammunition to do so. By the way, Australia desperately needs a similar protection of free speech in its constitution, although it should just be a given natural right, of course. It does seem that we need to be enshrining it in law to prevent people like our E-Safety Commission acting like political censors. But anyway, back to Julian Assange and the mega data dump. That is not journalism. That is the action of a child activist that would make Extinction Rebellion and the clowns at Just Stop Oil proud. That said, Assange has been punished enough for whatever misdeeds he may have done. And what sickens me more than anything, I just want to point this out, is that for years Assange was kept in a tiny cell, locked up 23 hours a day. Now, I'm a fairly conservative type and a big fan of Great Britain, as you know, if you watch this show regularly, but that is psychological torture by Britain of an Australian citizen. I repeat, that was psychological torture by Britain of an Australian citizen. And we let it happen with little fuss, and it was completely unnecessary. He should have been kept in low security facilities while all this was being sorted out. He suffered gross punishment by process and politics. Being locked up in the maximum security Belmarsh prison has absolutely nothing to do with due legal process, and certainly nothing to do with justice. So you can argue what you like about Assange's wrongdoing, nothing excuses that nonsense from the British authorities. And it's a national disgrace that falls firmly at the feet of our two biggest allies, the UK and the US. Did you know lots of Aussie YouTubers have to make American content to survive? We want to keep producing Aussie news, and to do that, we need your direct help. If you'd like to advertise on our show, please get in touch in the comments below or DM us on Twitter. Our Australian content means we deliver mostly an Aussie audience. Or if you'd just like to help us with a donation, please click on the Super Thanks button that's with the little dollar sign right under the video frame just here. Or just click the subscribe button and bell. That's free and it helps a lot.